Good evening, Adam here with some efficient stuff. That's the tagline I'm going with right now for this channel. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, I'm here with a video for Monday.com, which is my current favorite productivity tool that I've been using in my day job, which is as a lawyer. And I wanted to showcase a specific thing that I've been working on over the last week or so that I think a lot of people could find very useful in a variety of different industries and even just for your own personal use. And that is essentially what I've been calling a follow up worksheet or a follow up sort of priority task list. The general purpose of this task list is to have a. There's a lot of issues in a lot of businesses where you have a request you make to a third party vendor or provider and you don't even really realize that they never responded. And it's important, especially in an industry like law, to have sort of an escalating system of checks to basically so you have someone who's going to make the request, and then if the third party provider doesn't give you what you need, eventually at the end of the line, the boss is going to have to get involved and get on the phone and start getting mad to get things done. But if the boss never finds out that things are getting clogged up, you end up with an issue where there's a lot of outstanding requests from third party vendors that just never get back to you, and it can cause a bottleneck in your business. Now, this also has some application for just a personal, from a personal standpoint. If you are someone that has to send out invoices, let's just say you're in some sort of design field where you have to send out invoices to people for payment, let's just say graphic design or photography or something like that. You may want to have a system where you send out a month, an invoice, and then a reminder after a month, and then you need to keep track of how many times you've requested and how many times it's been, so you can take sort of an appropriate action should you not get what you need. So that's sort of the explanation for this worksheet I'm going to show you. And I don't know that people are going to find this or want this. But it's just something neat that I found, and I've been wanting to make a new YouTube channel, so let's just sort of jump right in. And I have set up a test workspace so that you don't get to look at all my stuff that I use for work. So let's just set up a new private board. So starting again, we're going to make a new board, a new private board with follow-ups from vendors. So we're just going to start with the basic empty board, which is basically what you're greeted with every time you make a new board, which just says titles, and it has sort of two different groups, and we are going to start it from scratch. So let me just delete everything, and we'll just start from there. So this is going to be a walkthrough, because we're going to use a good number of automations. It's important for you to just start from scratch, see what I'm doing, and then you can go from there. So we're going to start this one with basically an initial request. So this is going to be the group where the requests will live to start. So this will be before you actually make the request. So let's just go ahead and make a couple groups, and I'll explain what I'm going to do with each one. It would help if I could spell. So we're going to have an escalate group, and then we're going to finally have last group is going to be complete. So let's sort these into the correct order. So we're going to have initial requests, follow up, second follow up, escalate, and then complete. And I'm going to change the colors a little bit here, and you'll see why here in a second. So we're going to do yellow, orange, red, and then green. this one should actually be gray. And gray. Okay, so here's essentially the idea of what we're going for here. We are going to make the initial request. So let's just say we have an invoice. Let's just start a fresh one. It's got dates. And I'll explain the automations after I finish this. So let's just say we're going to do a invoice. Invoice to client John Smith. So what's going to happen then is you're going to make this to tell yourself, I need to send an invoice to John Smith. And I'll set up the automations to show you how this is going to work at the end. But what's going to happen is you're going to change it to I've sent the invoice, and it's going to move down to right here. And you're going to get a new date, basically a 30-day deadline or whatever deadline you want to remind yourself to follow up. So let's just say John Smith doesn't respond to your request for an invoice. You're going to send a follow-up, and then it'll move down to right here, telling you that you've now sent a follow-up message, and if you get to this deadline, he still hasn't responded. You're now, let's just say, 45 days out. So finally, and this may be a step that you don't need if it's just for you individually, but for, let's just say, a corporation or some sort of business, you get to the 45-day mark or whatever your internal guidelines say. Now it's time to escalate. You're going to escalate it down to here. It's going to be set up to notify somebody that you're 45 days out. John Smith still hasn't paid his bill, and it's time for the boss to get involved, or maybe just a different department. However you want to handle that, collections, doesn't matter. Or you may have some specific sort of follow-up letter that you have at this point. Again, totally your choice. And let's just say finally you've escalated it. He's paid. You move it down to here. You're done. All right. So now comes the fun part. We are going to do the automations for this board. So first off, well, actually, let's just start here first. First off, we need to do labels. So give me back that invoice so I have a button. So we've got a couple different labels here. So, and this is going to become self-explanatory in a second. Follow up, new label, and then you're going to see orange, followed up, new label, escalate, going with this nice, escalate, ESC. I can't spell. See, that's a character flaw. What are you gonna do though? Think. And done. Alright. So now we've got our labels, and let's put them in the order in which we need them. So this is actually going to be red, I think. We don't need that one. Okay. So what you're going to see now is we've got sort of the basic board without the automations done. And what we're trying to do is when you put it here, it's not going to have a label. It'll have a date, which we're going to say, 30 days out. Anyway, so you're going to have 30 days out, and then once you've sent it, you're going to hit the follow-up button. It's going to move down to right here, and it's going to get to 30 days. So actually, going back here again. So it's going to be blank to tell yourself, you can have it set. I usually have it set just for today's date. So you're going to have made a note for yourself that you need to send an invoice. You send the invoice and change the follow-up. Going to move down to right here. And then you're going to have it set to 30 days. So 30 days from the date in which you sent it. So let's just say doesn't send. and be followed up. Of course, let's actually just change that label. Second follow. And then let's just say, another 15 days. It's not going to work, it's not going to work perfectly here because you're going to have, it's already going to be December 23rd when you make this request. So, then you're going to be, whatever, January 5th, 2 weeks, something like that. And then finally, you get to January 5th, still hasn't done it. Going to hit escalate. It's going to go to here and give it another week. And then it's going to send notification. And then finally, if you hit done, this is what you get your confetti, and then it's going to come down here. And then 30 days later, it's going to automatically archive so that you don't get too clogged up. All right, I know that was a lot to follow, but that's what it's going to look like. That's what the dates are going to show. And now I'm going to show you how to automate that to get what you want. Okay, so let's move it back up here. Actually, now we're going to do a fresh one. So this is going to be the fun part. We have to do automations. So the first automation is going to be you want to do an initial request. And again, showing it from the basics. Send invoice. John Smith. So let's just say this is going to be your first step. So you're going to do that, and then you want two different things. First, you're going to want to have a person assigned to this task. And then second, you're going to want to have the date automatically assigned. So you can do this all in one automation. So, go to Automate, Automation, and then we're going to do, whenever you create an item, being whenever you create that invoice, you're going to assign a person. So I have this in a private board, so all I can assign is myself. So we're assign me as the person. Okay, good. So after we assign somebody as the person, what else do we want to do? We want to, date. Set date. Set date to today. All right. So here we go again. Invoice. John Smith. You're going to make the invoice. It's going to assign me, and then it's going to set the date to today. And if you were to go and check your work, you would see that this would be due today. All right, so then what was the next step? The next step was changing the status to follow up, and then getting it to move down to here. So that's step 2. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to go back to automations, add new automation, custom, and we're going to, and this is going to work basically the rest of the way down the list. When the status changes, so status being, so I may need to explain these columns. So when you're having to select a column, you can have multiple columns that do sort of similar things. Right now we have 4 columns: person, status, date, and file. File, which I'm not going to use, so I'm going to delete that. Person, status, and date. You have a lot of options for a lot of different columns. Don't need to get into it right now. These are the basic ones, all we need for right now. So when I click on, when I ask for status, that's this column here. And when you change it, that's where it's going to show up. All right, so we're going to need to create an automation. And again, this is going to be when the status changes to follow up, we need to change the date. So first we're going to move it. So we want to move it to followed up. And then we also need to do the date part of it. So set date So you're going to set the date to today. So then you're going to push the date. So what this is going to do is this is your follow-up. So we're going to lock this in. I'm going to show you what it does. So let's make a request. John Smith. So you're going to change it to follow-up. Then you're going to see what it does. Bumps down the list. Now it's in the follow-up. You're going to see that the date, today is the 25th. So now the date is 25 days past the day in which you sent the request. So now you have your deadline. You have your 25-day deadline. So really that is sort of the most complicated portion of this, and I'm going to now show you how the rest of them are done, but it really is, you're just going to be able to duplicate these. So now we need one for second follow-up. So you can move it down to second follow-up. And then again, you're just going to set the date to today. And then this one, we want a shorter time period, or I do anyway. So I'm going to set this to 14 days, 2 weeks. We're going to add another one. Well, oops. We're going to duplicate it, that's a little easier. And this one's going to be Escalate. So this one's going to be slightly different. We're going to move this one to the Escalate column. Again, we're going to set the date to today because, again, you're going to be 45 days out, but you always want to reset your date in case, whatever reason, you run a couple days slow, you still want to give it a 14-day or whatever your time period is to get around to it. Or if you get to it early, you want to reset your deadline to 2 weeks. So you're going to set the date to today, push it by 14 days, and then the last part of it is you're going to notify. So this is if it's not just for you, you're working in an organization, and you want to let somebody else know in your organization. You can say, I'm stuck, item name, won't pay his invoice. Okay. So you can notify somebody about this. And since I'm the only person on this that can see this board, I'm just going to notify myself. Alright, so then, let's show how all these work in tandem, in collection, in collaboration, what do you want to call it? Invoice, John Smith. Whoops. Alright, you made your invoice. It's today's date, set for today's date. Again, you can change that if you want to. Give yourself a couple days to send it out. You've sent it, now you want to follow up. It gives you 30 days to follow up. Alright, so it hasn't responded, you can change it to second follow-up. And again, this date's going to go a little bit backwards. But that's just because you would have been sending it on December 25th, not on November 25th. So this should say January 9th. And then, alright, let's say he still hasn't responded. You're going to escalate it. It's going down to the escalate column. And you're going to see I got a notification. I'm stuck. John Smith won't pay his invoice. So if that's somebody else, you can have that set to somebody else. Alright, now finally we're going to do the last part of this board, which is to move it down to the complete column. Let's just delete this so we can start over. We're going to do this in two different automations. So first, the easy one, you're going to want to move it whenever the status changes to complete. You want to move it down to the complete column. Done. Move to complete. Done. Easy enough. Actually, let's also change the date. So we're going to also make this date, set date to today. And I'm going to explain why you do this here in a second. So, and that was just sort of a shortcut. It's not the best system for editing. If you try to edit, you'll see that you can't. You can change these, but you can't add new lines. So you basically have to duplicate it to add new lines and delete the original one. Anyway, It's just a little add-on there, a little bonus for everybody following along at home. So now you moved it down to done, and I'll show you how that works. So you got it? Maybe? It's going a little slow. Assigns me, sets the date. So now we're going to move it to done, confetti, and it's down to complete. And it has that date. And I will show you why we're going to do that. So if you remember, I was saying you're going to want to archive. Now you could go down here and, just manually archive and, it'll disappear. But that's boring. We're here to automate everything to make it as easy as possible so anybody that you provide this tool for can just click on the colors and the corresponding colors, and really the goal is to make this as seamless as possible. Otherwise, why are you using this program? And this automations are the reason you use this program. So we're gonna make one more. So we're gonna make an archive automation. So date arrives. So when 30 days after the date, which again is going to be today's date, then you're going, and only if the status is done, you're going to archive. And that's it. So this is all 6 automations you're going to need for this board. And we're just going to go through them real quick again in order. So I'm going to send John Smith one more invoice. I'm going to assign the individual, whoever you choose. Set it to today's date. If you follow up, it's going to be 30 days from today's date. Second follow-up is going to be 14 days from today's date. Escalate is going to be 14 days from today's date. And it's also going to send a notification. And finally, done. Going to move it down here, and then once it turns to December 25th, it's going to archive it. It's going to disappear, and then you'll have additional space in which to work. So that's really all I wanted to cover today. I know that this is a pretty long first video, a little bit dense. It's been a lot of fun working on this, getting it figured out. There are, quite frankly, an absolutely almost immeasurable number of different ways you can use these automations to basically work with these boards and ship them between boards. But that's all stuff I'm going to cover in another sort of tutorial. I don't know how I'm going to arrange these tutorials in the long run. I'm just going to post this. Hopefully people enjoy it. What I think I'm going to do is end up using these to sort of showcase various ways you can use automations on Monday.com. And I may also just do some real basic short videos to explain very, very basic things, because this is pretty dense. This was a lot of different sort of lessons all baked into one. If you enjoyed the format, let me know. If it was too long, let me know that as well. If you think I should have broken it up, absolutely tell me that. This is just a practical example. This is something I use in our business, and I have an employee who is in charge of doing requests from third parties, and she has found this very useful. It's extremely easy to follow along. It's color-coded. All you have to do is change the status. That's all you have to do. So I can go in and add the request, or somebody else in the organization can go in and add a request, any kind of request, and then just click on the buttons, goes down the list, and it'll show up in your work column. And you can also, of course, go to calendar view. And see what you have to do and what you need to get done. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much.